to get much faster at doing my own job. Put that on a large scale, there's people losing jobs, right? Because of that, right? Because all of a sudden, some of these roles can be automated. But what I really want to highlight of this is the sky is not falling. This is one of the changes that just naturally takes place over time. So today, it's what professionals are doing today. And as somebody who got his start in SEO back in '99, I can tell you what I was doing 5 years ago was very different than what we were doing the today of '99, right? Like it was a very, very different thing. So we need to really keep on top and find and sort of hone what we're doing and start to approach things very differently, because for sure, this is a massive, massive shift. I would make this akin to the introduction of PageRank by Google and just going, oh, okay, everything's totally different. SEOs who were working before that had a very different job than the SEOs working after that. And some people got left out in the cold on that one. Many did, because they weren't able to adapt to a dramatically different sort of structure. However, if you can, there's going to be a lot of opportunity. So what's coming soon will undoubtedly look something like this.
Okay, let's do some tests. Tell me when you see something that makes sense.
I see a speaker, which makes sound.
What is that part of the speaker called?
That is a speaker. It produces high frequency sound.
Give me a creative alliteration about these.
Creative crayons color cheerfully. They certainly craft colorful creation.
What does that part of the code do?
This code defines encryption and decryption functions. It seems to use AESCPC encryption to encode and decode data based on a key and an initialization vector, IV.
What neighborhood do you think I'm in?
This appears to be the King's Cross area of London. It is known for its railway station and transportation connections.
Do you remember where you saw my glasses?
Okay.
Yes, I do. Your glasses were on the desk near a red apple.
Call your
To
10.
make this system faster.
Adding a cache between the server and database could improve speed.
What does this remind you of?
Shrugging your staff.
All right, give me a band name for this duo.
Golden Stripe.
Nice. Thanks, Gemini.
So even if you've seen this video before, I think one of the things that would be a really good takeaway is, and watch it again, is how do all of the different things that we just saw apply to your job, your company, and the real world? So what we saw simply is object detection and understanding with the tweeter, code generation and understanding, location detection and description. I mean, imagine if you're in the travel industry, what that capability alone, as people are wandering around the area near you or in the city, if you're head of a tourism bureau or whatnot, what's now being unlocked there? Object location, finding your stuff, creativity, and of course, problem solving in the environment. These are all going to be brand new features that are unlocked. And as marketers, we need to really be thinking not just about, hey, here's the traditional stuff that we've been doing all along, but these are capabilities that are going to be unlocked. Like maybe not in the next 6 months, but certainly in the next couple of years. These are the sorts of features that we're going to be seeing built into the everyday world that we're going to be marketing into. So right now we're using generative AI, write social posts, as you saw, outline, write content, schema and technical issue identification. A lot of the tools are building it in there, creating paid copy, analyzing data, all sorts of things. The list goes on and on and on. So one of the questions that we all sort of need to be asking is, how necessary will you be in a year, right? I mean, if AI and generative AI can do a lot of the job that you're doing, and all you're sort of able to do is steer it, how long until somebody builds a widget that'll let it steer, right? Builds the tool or the suite to steer it. And where does that leave you? So questions that every marketer needs to be asking himself as generative AI and ML in general starts to really, really take hold, as we're seeing over the last year and a half, is if everyone...
Joe. So basically just write content on Reddit.
uses the same model, slightly better content. Additionally, what training do you need to be one skill ahead? So what is it you're going to need to know 6 months from now? And it might not be related specifically to machine learning or prompt engineering. I, for example, am right now diving into Salesforce a little bit to understand a little bit more about how that works and how down funnel tasks and how I'm impacting those, right? Like, but what training do I need to do to be one skill ahead of what the person sitting next to me is doing? But also, what is one skill I can add that AI can't add easily in the next couple of years? Who is your competition? And it's not AI. Like, I'm sort of talking about, hey, what skill can I add that AI will have difficulty adding in? Great. But my competitor actually is the person sitting next to me, right? Like, and I don't mean at the office, I mean the person competing for the same role that I have, or the people who are completing the same tasks that I have. So you need to make sure that you're one step ahead of that. And how can you bridge between different AI systems and functions? And this is where I think a lot of the gold actually lies, not just in sort of like survival, maintaining your job, but additionally in providing real value. Is we have all of these systems all doing their own things. Who's the person that can sit there that understands it all? For example, why am I learning Salesforce, right? And how to pull reports from it, and what, you know, sort of the people in the company who are using it daily are using it for, is to understand how their system, how what we're doing with AI systems is actually helping produce revenue sort of further down the funnel. So where can you fit in there? And it might be an AI skill. It might be like, all right, time to learn Python, right? Like that might be the thing that you focus on. But what is one skill that AI won't be able to have, or that'll just enhance your speed faster than anybody in the room next to you? So thank you very much. I hope you have found this entertaining and interesting, and had a few good takeaways. I look forward to answering your questions in just a moment. On the right are some resources. You can access them through downloading the deck, which will also help you on some of the maybe finer examples that I was giving earlier when I was discussing the levels of prompt engineering, where maybe you couldn't quite read the text or want to take it back because it went a little too fast. And hopefully you find these resources very helpful, and somehow during this session, I've degraded to a 50% chance that I'm the person. I look forward to seeing you next year.
Hey everybody, welcome to Overtime. I am here with Dave Davies after his excellent session on operationalizing generative AI for SEOs. Welcome in, Dave. Great presentation. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks so much, Danny. Always a pleasure.
Awesome. All right. So we want to get right into the comments. If you have any questions for Dave, throw them in the chat now. We're going to answer as many as we can in the next 15 minutes or so. So let's dive right in. The first one that came in was from Megan, who says, as a professional writer, I often feel that I spend as much time creating highly specific prompts that I would than I would if I wrote the content from scratch. Are there tools available that can automate some parts of the prompt development process?
Generally, the answer that I have to find is no. There aren't many tools out there. Like there's many, and I guess it depends on what your starting point is on your skills. and what you feel comfortable with. So I can really only speak from me personally on this one. And I do use it, as you saw, for like article outlines and stuff. I have used it for content generation. And I tend to find that I can't customize most tools as much as I might like. And with the rapid evolution of different models, my prompts end up changing. So I just keep, quite honestly, a folder on my, this is totally like a bit archaic, but it works really well. It's just like a folder on my desktop of different prompts into Notepad documents. And you can sort of like tab your Notepad, like have ones for like, this one's for like Llama, if I want to test it against Gemini, I want to test it against different models, because different models are better at specific tasks. But I do find that every time a new model, like we just went from GPT-4 to GPT-4o, it's different. It's better at a lot of things, especially if you're doing ads. So just the rapid pace of change makes it really, really hard to sort of say, this is the specific prompt, but keep a good record of what you're doing, find out what is working, and then just adjust as you go forward, so you're not having to recreate the wheel, and maybe come up with like a point form list for yourself of like, here's my core structure of these things. Like I might need to change this part, but these top parts are always the same. I do that when I'm creating like YouTube descriptions. Like, okay, here's my formats, and then dump in my format, like a few shot examples like I was showing for like a few descriptions that are working well for me or whatnot, and then just feed in what I need to do. So if you're doing articles in that structure, sort of like, here's articles that I've really liked, that have performed really well. Now here's what I need you to do next with the prompt.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thanks for the question, Megan. We'll go to a next one from Ben. Do you use any AI detector tools to ensure that all this work doesn't get deprioritized by Google's algorithm? I will just say I have, maybe I'm wrong, but from all I've heard, there are no real AI detector tools that work reliably. Is that true, Dave?
Yeah, it is. Like I've tricked them, and not very, very reliably, I guess is the way to word it. Now, for myself, I don't use, as you can see in the example I used it to create an article outline, not to create an article.
Right.
And an article itself, like, I'm not saying don't do it. Just like, going back a few years ago, I didn't like put on my like shiny white hat and go, never buy links. Everything has its risk tolerance. You know what it is. You know what Google's telling you what to do. You know what you're about to do. So if you're auto-generating content and firing it out, there's a risk level associated with that. Right now, they're kind of rubbish. And we can see that. It was like a week ago, Perplexity pages were showing up. And so Perplexity, another generative engine, Perplexity pages were showing up as references in Google's AI overview. So like, it's really, really not good at telling one from the other. So any tool is clearly like we're taking a best guess. There have been some attempts at them though, but anytime you do that, it is with risk. So I tend to be trying to find other ways to do it. Also, don't forget about hallucinations. Like, proof this stuff before you toss it out there.
Absolutely. So we did have a question come in. I know you were, as you just mentioned, you weren't really talking about building the content itself, but there was one question here from, where'd it go? Sorry, it was right in front of me. All right. Well, anyway, basically the question is, does this actually result in rankings? Like the content, we'll put it that way, from the the article outlines that you're generating, does that actually help with the potential for it to rank better than it would if you had, done it by hand otherwise, I guess is what we're trying to ask there.
Yeah, it does. And I guess this is where we get into the operationalization though. So I'm not actually doing something fundamentally different than I was already doing. I basically took a look at the process of what I was doing. I was already looking at the entities. I was already pulling in keyword data. I was already looking at the top questions and also asked and this and that. I was already doing all of that and then handwriting these articles. What I wanted to do was go, I don't have time to do this at scale, right? Like I have authors that work with us. I can't just do all of that. So, or I can, but there's also better uses for my time. So how can I operationalize that, develop these these things. But as I say, then I still have to go back, take a quick scan of the data, add in some things, remove some things based on my own understanding of sort of like what we're doing, right? Like I know probably a little more about machine learning and specifically what we're trying to accomplish with weights and biases than than the system itself does. So you need to tweak it, but that's sort of what I'm trying to do, is not make something better than me. I'm basically trying to take a bunch of work off of me that's better done by a machine. A machine can do it in 5 minutes. It saved me like half an hour, and I could have been answering Slack messages in that 5 minutes while I was waiting for it.
Absolutely. Okay. And that question was basically that question I was trying to ask was from Jagdeep. I kind of changed it a little bit, but thank you for that question, Jagdeep. This is an interesting one. So Margaret wants to know, Dave, when you asked yourself the ask yourself questions at the end of your presentation, what were your answers?
It's funny. Like I don't have all the because bits as I've looked at them, so I'm not going to go point form. But I think it loops into that is a really, really good question. I should actually pull up the additional all the questions and I actually ask myself just so I could answer this question a little more pointedly. But I think the overarching theme that I try and stick with is the when it comes down to skill sets, for example, and how do I stay relevant? And how do I stay, as I point out, sort of one step like that, but based on something a little further down funnel. This is not something that an AI system is going to be able to interpret because it's quickly. Eventually they will. They're going to catch up to me in a few years. But if I'm able to look that far down and sort of get very, very specific into my use case, it's going to take AI a lot longer to catch up to what I'm trying to accomplish. And more importantly, the person next to me probably isn't doing it quite the same, or at least there's enough of there's few of us, or too few of us to cover all the different companies that would need that taken into account. So my job is secure for a couple more years, but I got to keep my eye on what's the next skill I need to learn.
Absolutely. Okay. We just under 5 minutes left, so we're going to try and get to 2 or 3 more questions here. Hopefully, one of my favorite people, Melissa Foch, has a question for you, Dave. With highly competitive industries and Google SERP features competing with websites, planning to rank is a billion times harder than it used to be. Do you think AI will be able to find ways to not only win, but also help the company make money without human input?
Love you, Melissa.
This is an easy question for you.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer to me, sort of, and I'm guessing that, Melissa, thank you. I think you probably know the answer too, because I know Melissa. She is a seasoned veteran in this one, obviously. But a good question, I think, for the audience, which is probably why Melissa asked it. Yes. The short answer is it's not okay. I'm not a publisher. So I was going to say it's not stealing from anybody, this evolution of AI, and I hope I'm answering this in the sort of structure that's intended. But if I was a publisher, yeah, okay, there's other concerns that I might have. So taking that out of it and going, I actually have a hard product that isn't information that I'm trying to sell. I think when you get into that structure, the simple fact is there's still going to be X number of blue widgets sold, right? We're not consuming less, we're consuming more. Is SEO getting harder? Yeah. You could argue that it is. I think we're looking well past the 10 organic links, and we're now looking at AI overviews and what those morph into over time. When we're saying it's getting harder, is it getting harder into the top 10? Yeah, kind of, but it's still level. So actually, I, as a seasoned person, and I know Melissa too, is probably yeah, this is great because the newbies are going to have a harder time because they didn't get to watch this thing get built from the organic top 10. But getting into the AI overviews, that sort of leveled the playing field with fewer links because it is coming in as a little more authoritative. Once they get their crap together, I almost swore there, so I'm glad I didn't. But once they get their crap together and actually get those AI overviews, sort of creating reliable information consistently and people can trust them, there will be less links. So it will get harder-ish, in my opinion, but I think more, it's just going to get a lot more complex and providing opportunities for those of us paying attention now. So I'll just use my use case as an example of where I might look at it as getting more complex. I can jam as much as I want onto my site. At the end of the day, we're a machine learning company who needs to get code in front of people. So is my site the best place to put that code? Probably not, right? Like in all cases, yes, we need to have it. Yes, we need to still rank in that top 10. Yes, we need to be what they're providing as citations. But I need to now supplement that with like GitHub, with Stack Overflow, with like all these other third-party sources, not as links, but as when somebody's asking Google or ChatGPT to generate code so that it understands the code that's meant for experiment tracking is weights and biases code. We need to use that one in there if somebody's doing a query related to it. So I think that is where it gets more complex, but one could argue that that's happened countless times through the evolution, right? Like from PageRank onward, it was just these sort of like, and now it's a little bit different than it was before. And those who pay attention to those changes are up for some big wins. The Allen Institute, I'm actually about to publish an article. The Allen Institute did a thing on generative engine optimization and like, here's the features that are different and some of the techniques. So it does get a little interesting when you get into generative engine optimization, like keyword stuffing doesn't work, but like including citations and quotes does, right? Stuff like that. Like it just gets a little bit different for that area.
All right. We are out of time, unbelievably. So I know we have a lot of questions that came in. Dave, I may be asking you to do a bonus article for us on Search Engine Land, maybe to answer some of the questions we didn't get to here. So we have to end it there, unfortunately. But Dave, thank you for taking the time to answer the questions we get to and your excellent presentation. And awesome. Thank you to everyone for watching. Before you leave, if you could take a moment to tell us how we did in the Rate Session tab on the right of your screen. The more ratings you leave, the greater chance you will have of winning a $100 Amazon gift card or a $100 donation to a charity of your choice. Next up, we're going to have about a 10-minute break and followed by even more great sessions. See you there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for watching. Click the agenda link at the top of your screen to